Eagles, Falcons tonight. We'll dive into the matchup with KC Joyner right here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Now, Stacey, you can tell that I'm not in the studio today. I'm not controlling the music. That was a good one for you, but no Bobby Roode.
No Bobby Roode, but it is a good segue for the Mae Young Classic, the WWE's Mae Young Classic. I got to do an exclusive interview with Paul Triple H Levesque, and we'll be, I don't know when we post that, probably be October before we post that, but I had exclusive interview time with him. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, let's tie into this game tonight and get your take. There's so many interesting matchups in this one. First, quarterback. Nick Foles is under center. We watched him last year. When you watch Nick Foles on tape, give us your assessment of who this guy is. Is he a guy that could be or should be a starting quarterback in this league? Is he a middle-of-the-road guy? Is he a backup player? When you watch him with his body of work, which is so hot and cold, he's 27-2. He's the guy that people wanted benched after the Oakland game. Give us your overview of who Nick Foles is with such a wide range of games and success and failure in this league.
In a perfect world, he is, I frequently refer to the old Oakland Raiders back in the 60s and 70s when they had Darryl LaMonica was their starter, George Blanda was their backup, and Kenny Staber was their third string. You're talking two guys in the Hall of Fame and another LaMonica who should be. And the reason they had Blanda as the backup is because he just wasn't the guy you want to have as your starter at that point, probably because he was as old as he was, but that was, he had some limitations there. I look at Foles, I see the same thing. He's a guy who one time led the league in bad decision rate. That's my metric that measures so often the quarterback makes a mental error that turns into a turnover opportunity. He led the league in that category, so he can protect the ball. We know he can make big plays. We saw that in the Super Bowl, but he's also a guy who he can be so hot and cold that even if he doesn't lose you the game, he can do enough things to not win you the game. So I don't think he should be a starter. If he is, he would be a hit-and-miss starter. I think he's perfectly suited to be a backup to come into situations like this.
Yeah, very interesting guy. Look at the Eagles' running game now. They're losing LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, Darren Sproles is back, Corey Clement. Is the Eagles' run game a better running game this year without LeGarrette Blount and having maybe more Jay Ajayi and Darren Sproles, or are they going to really miss Darren Sproles?
I think that Ajayi he doesn't get the credit he deserves as being a potential breakaway back. He was 12th in the league last year, my good blocking yards per attempt metric that measures how productive a back is when you give him quality run blocking. And a couple of years ago, he was in double-digit territory. It's really hard to get in the double-digit territory. So he's a guy who can hit some home runs. I would hope that they would not ask him to be a bell cow and put Clement out there, because Clement's he's been productive enough to where I would want him to be in my alternate back and keep Ajayi from trying to hit 350 touches, because I think if you keep Ajayi at 250 to 300 touches, you're going to keep him a lot healthier. He doesn't seem like the sort of guy who you want a bell cow. So I like where the running game is. Their offensive line graded up really well, my offensive line metrics this season. I think they could actually be an A-rated offensive line in that area, and if they can do that well there, I think it can help spike up their pass blocking too.
Okay, tonight with Atlanta in town, Nick Foles playing quarterback, no Alshon Jeffrey. Matt Collins has now been placed on the injured reserve list. How does the Eagle offense match up with the Falcons? Where is the weakness of the Falcons defense?
I think that they're going to want to heavily feature Zach Ertz tonight, or heavily feature Dallas. I think they're going to feature everybody in their tight end, because the Falcons rank very badly. They have close to a green rating in my metric that measures how well teams cover tight ends. They're close to that. I still have them as a yellow rated, which means they're still a mid-tier defense, but they're really close in that area. I would think they'd want to that's where you'd want to go. It's where the coverage weakness is. Also, though, Brian Poole, he's been a good cornerback in past years. Looks to be probably their slot cornerback. And if Aguilar gets up against Poole, assuming that the Falcons don't try and shift their defense, put somebody else to cover Aguilar, if that's who they end up with a matchup on, I would go definitely at Brian Poole. And if they switch Brian Poole to cover, say, Wallace, I'm going over the top there too. So those are the two places I go after: strong safety and nickel corner.
Okay, so you look at the Eagle offense, and obviously you mentioned that offensive line. Can you run the ball against this Atlanta team? You got Jason Peters back. The line, you mentioned they should be a better line, but how does this front four match up, this front five of the Eagles match up with their front four?
I don't think the Falcons do well against power rushing teams. They've got a speed defense. That's what they're built for. They're built to play with the lead. They're built to be in a lot of ways still to be the defense that matches up with the 2016 Falcons offense. The 2017 Falcons offense wasn't well suited for that defense because it didn't give them a lead quite often enough. This is a fast break defense, and that's what they're designed to do. So, again, if I'm Philadelphia, when you look at the metrics and you look at the tape, the Falcons defense can do fairly well, but I just don't think they handle power. So if I'm the Eagles, I'm trying to power rush this ball early and often because I don't think the Falcons over the course of 4 quarters can handle it.
Yeah, you see, you would anticipate a lot of RPOs tonight from Philadelphia, kind of holding those speed rushers at bay. Last year, that game was 15-10. There was not a lot of offense, but Casey, we got a lot of heat in this game. We're going to probably see depth really come into play for both these teams. And, you know, you look at Jason Peters and some of these Eagles, they barely played in the preseason. How do you think that factors into that offensive line play tonight?
The good thing is that the Eagles bring most of their offensive line snaps back, so they have got a lot of continuity, and I think when you've got that much continuity, when I've done studies in the past, teams that have a lot of continuity in their offensive line, even, frankly, if they don't have much talent, if you take a team that, whatever their talent level is, if you look at the continuity and you measure how they do when they have continuity, they tend to do a lot better than they do when they don't. So the Eagles have continuity. I think that helps them out a lot. I prefer, as we talked during the preseason, we kind of prefer to see teams start to get a little more into a groove before they get into the season rather than try and start getting the groove in week 1. But I think given how much continuity the Eagles have, I believe they've returned 86.4% of their offensive line snaps, I think they'll be okay.
Okay, we're talking with KC Joyner, ESPN.com senior NFL insider. The matchup tonight is Eagles and Falcons. We're breaking down the places to watch. And if you're Atlanta now, you're on the offensive side of the ball. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Donta Freeman, who was not 100% healthy in that playoff game. They brought in Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu. They got weapons. Where do they attack this Philadelphia Eagles team on defense?
They need to be more aggressive offensively is what they need to be. The problem for them last year was, twofold, was that Steve Sarkisian is nowhere near as creative a play caller as Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan might be the most creative play caller in the NFL. He does things with his schematics that nobody else does, and teams have a lot of trouble with. Sarkisian's just not that way. And the problem for the Falcons tonight, if I'm the Falcons, I don't want to run the ball because the Eagles ranked first in good blocking rate allowed. Their defense did. So they didn't allow very many opportunities for the other team to get good blocking. They allowed big plays when the team did get good blocking, but they didn't allow very many of them. So if I'm the Falcons, I don't want to go after that part of their defense because even though the Falcons have what I rated as the second best offensive line in the league coming into the season, I project them to be that good. You don't want to match up strength against strength. They'd rather go strength against weakness. And if I'm looking at the secondary, I know the Eagles ball hawk well in their secondary, but I look at their coverage grades. I've got everybody in the Eagles secondary rated with a yellow rated coverage grade, which is average coverage grade. So if I'm the Falcons, I want to throw to Jones, I want to throw to Ridley, I want to throw to Sanu. I want to see Matt Ryan throwing 35 passes and going after the secondary and testing them because I don't want to try and go strength versus strength.
Eagles pass rush, you mentioned against this offensive line, which is a pretty good offensive line. That was a weakness for them last year. The Eagles pass rush is very deep. Bennett, obviously Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, you know the particulars, Chris Long, Derek Barnett. If they're going to try to not run the ball strength versus strength, are they going to be able to hold up against this Eagle pass rush?
I would think they would, the Eagles last year. The funny thing is the Eagles didn't get a lot of credit for they finished 21st in sack percentage of plays, dropbacks that ended up in a sack. But the Eagles finished 12th in the league last year in pressure rate, and they were third in how often they contacted the other quarterback, how often they got some sort of contact, a hit or a sack counts as quarterback contact as well. They had the third highest percentage there, so that's a big plus for them, and they were first in amount of time allowed in pocket and a lot of time allowed before pass. The average amount of time you have before in the pocket before the pass or time before the pass overall, including out-of-pocket plays. So the Eagles will rush you too. So if I'm the Falcons, I do want to go vertical, but they're going to have to account for that because the Eagles have a way of making quarterbacks get rid of the ball quickly.
Yeah, and I know Philadelphia, the secondary. Last year at this time, if we were having this conversation, we would have been concerned, and this would have been a weakness for them. But you mentioned that, maybe their coverage isn't great, but they do have talent with Darby and Mills and Sidney Jones. The question I have for you is, do you think Atlanta goes after Sidney Jones? He has not really played in the slot. Robinson was the guy for Philly last year. He's now gone. So is the slot the area that maybe Atlanta goes after, even though Sidney Jones might be their most talented corner?
I would think it would be where they'd want to go. I don't. If I'm looking at the matchups, you think Sanu might face Mills is what they probably do. If I'm the Eagles, I'm keeping Darby on Jones because Darby's my top corner, and I don't want Jones facing somebody else. But if you get Ridley against the slot corner, if you put him there, I think it's a really good matchup for them. But Ridley's a rookie, so I mean he's really good. He's pro ready. But I'm still, if I'm the Eagles, I might want to do some things to see if I can get him mixed up. And if I think that the Falcons might be forcing passes there, if there's one thing Matt Ryan does, he's done okay in the bad decision rate metric, and some years he's been bad in that, and in fact Boston College was bad at that too. He's got a track record of trying to force passes. If I'm the Eagles, I might try and use that against him and say, okay, I'm going to try and do some things there to try and bait you and trick you into throwing passes into double coverage. So I'd like to see the Eagles do a lot of things of that nature, and if you get a rush on Ryan, he forces even more passes. So pass rush is another big factor.
All right, when you look at Atlanta as a whole, where is their biggest area of concern that the Eagles have a clear advantage in?
It's a tough call. I would probably say that the Falcons' pass rush is not that solid. They've added people. They want to get after players, and I guess I'd say they're a system team, that they want to be able to get the lead, and again, that defense has to play. It reminds me of the old Colts defense when Peyton Manning was there, and you'd expect a Peyton Manning to go out and give you a lead, and then you could pin your ears back. But if Peyton didn't get you the lead, you weren't pinning your ears back, and it was an entirely different defense. That's a problem for them. I don't think that they handle power well, and I don't think that if you get them out of what their system is, their defense adjusts very well. So I think that they have a couple of ways that are really favorable game plans for them, but otherwise they're not doing very well. So if I'm the Eagles, again, I want to get Atlanta to play a game plan that they don't want to play.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com senior NFL insider. And then if you're Atlanta and, you are kind of looking over Philadelphia for this game, what is the game plan on how do we sneak into Philadelphia and try to pull out a victory against them? What are they preaching this week?
I projected that the Eagles had a C rating in pass blocking this season, and I think it could get better. A lot of that depended on Jason Peters, and if Jason Peters was going to be back to what he was in his prime, the 9-time Pro Bowler that he is. When you have a double ligament tear, it kind of at his age it can be an issue. So if I'm Atlanta, I want to see the Eagles do they still have a C-rated pass blocking, because if they do, I want to keep getting after Foles as much as possible. Again, another reason to play with the lead to see if you can test that and see, okay, 36 years old and you're going up against speed pass rushers, because they do have good speed pass rushers. If nothing else, they have the ability to get a good pass rush. They just haven't been able to do it. But if I'm them, that's what I want to test. I want to see if the Eagles pass blocking can hold up, and if it can't, then Foles will make some mistakes and it could cost the Eagles.
Should be very interesting tonight. The matchups to watch, Eagles and Falcons, and KC Joyner with us here all season long. He'll be back on tomorrow's show at this time to break this game down and then look ahead to the weekend matchups. And, one thing's for sure, Philly's got, the crowd's going to be bonkers up there, obviously. But, man, can they overcome the injuries, Casey? Kind of give us your keys to this game and who you like in this matchup tonight.
I still abide by the idea that the Eagles are the number one team in the league, even if you said, okay, Wentz is going to be out 3 or 4 games and Foles is taking over. Okay, and Alshon's out. All right, well, Alshon didn't have great numbers last year. We're looking at metrically, so it doesn't help to not have him there. But the Eagles have enough talent in their offense and what they've added to more than make up for that. I just like the whole situation of being at home, the defense that they have, the ability to run the ball. Foles is there. You're still getting a big play guys in this offense. I think Wallace can step up. I keep looking at these factors, and I just check one after the other and say, I think it's going to be probably a bit of a high-scoring game, but I think the Eagles are going to put up maybe 10 more than the Falcons. I think they win this, not going away, but handily.
All right, KC Joyner likes Philadelphia by about 10 points tonight, and some points on the board. It's going to be hot up in Philly. We heard 95 degrees from our Eagles insider, John McMullen. He's already there, and he said it is a scorcher up there tonight. We'll check out this game coming up. The countdown to kickoff starts in 40 minutes right here on 97.3 ESPN. KC Joyner's back tomorrow to recap it all and preview the week ahead right here on the Sports Bash. Enjoy the game tonight, pal.
Hey, same team, man. Appreciate it.